Time to light the match for the burning truth with Casey Hendrickson.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to The Burning Truth. Don't forget, Dinesh D'Souza going to be joining us in about half an hour, about 4:30, to talk about his new movie, Vindicating Trump. Joining us on the line right now is Kayla Blakesley, host of Fort Wayne's Morning News, one of our affiliate stations out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Kayla, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing good. How are you, Casey?
I'm hanging in there. So I just went over some of the FEMA data. I still have more that we have to get to. A lot of breaking news about what's been happening with the hurricane. And I catch wind that our very own Kayla Blakesley is organizing an effort to help victims out there. And I was hoping that you would come on and kind of tell us what's going on and how people can help.
Oh, Casey, I can't take all the credit for that. But just like you, I know that the federal government is not going to save the day or come to the rescue of all of the individuals there south of us, down south after Hurricane Helene. So this morning on my show on WOWO, I had on the COO of Buchanan Hauling and Distributing. And he came on to talk to me about how they're trying to fill 20 semi-trucks, okay? So these are not your little tiny box trucks. 20 semi-trucks with supplies to take down to North Carolina. They've got to hook up down there to ensure that they can be distributed, all these supplies, to people that need them. And I'm on the air with him, and I'm talking, and you know how it is. You got to love live radio. Spur of the moment, I just said on the air, I was like, man, I want to be a part of this. I want to help. Can I bring my show out there on Monday morning and help solicit donations? And he said, yeah, sure, come on out. So the next thing you know, one thing has turned into another, and we have local businesses teaming up, churches teaming up, calling, emailing, writing, saying, hey, we've got pallets of water. Hey, we want to bring some brand new clothes. Hey, we've got baby food that we can bring over. And so they're already off to a good start. You can take your donations directly to Buchanan here in Fort Wayne. So that's 5130 Executive Boulevard. I know that's a long haul for a lot of your drivers, but here's the good news, Casey. If you go to wowo.com, or if you follow me on Facebook at WOWO Kayla, because they were so inundated this morning, they also started a GoFundMe that they're going to keep open for the next about 4 to 5 days. So if you want to make a monetary donation, you can do that, and then we're going to go buy supplies that we need to try and fill these trucks. Now, our goal is 20 of these bad boys, okay? So it's definitely a lofty goal, but I truly believe, we're just one pinprick. You bring 1,000 pinpricks together, and you can start to really move some mountains.
Would you do me a favor for those of us who are awesome and are banned on Facebook? Would you also post that on X so I can put it in the Daily Show prep and get it out to people as well?
I would be happy to do that. I hear you on that. I've been in Facebook jail a couple of times myself. But really, Casey, it's so important. I'm sure you've talked about it all morning long or all afternoon long. I'm on the wrong morning drive show here. All afternoon are just about the pathetic response that's coming down from the Biden-Harris administration, from FEMA. I was getting a little investigative myself because I don't know if you've heard this or talked about this, but I uncovered this morning FEMA, it must be getting so inundated. We, the people, must be making so much noise. We've gotten so loud at how pathetic they have been that they have now created on their government website, Casey. They've taken the time to do this.
It's the next topic.
The rumor response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, they've created this page, and I don't know, wait till you read it. It is deplorable. And so then what I decided to do from there is a little further investigating, and I actually tried to apply for this $750, this FEMA relief, because we're hearing stories that people are being denied. And wouldn't you know it, I logged in, made up a fake account, tried to request it, and what it said is they had to come to my home to inspect it, which could take up to 10 days.
Yeah.
Casey, these people don't even have homes. There are no homes to inspect.
Right.
Exactly. It's deplorable. So that's why, it was on my heart this morning to get involved with Buchanan. They're truly the spark. We're just trying to pour gasoline on it and really ignite a fire here with bringing Hoosiers together, which is my favorite part, about this state. Everyone's, Hoosiers helping Hoosiers. And in this case, it's Hoosiers helping our fellow Americans. And I am so excited about waiting to see what we can accomplish. And the sooner we pack those trucks, my personal goal is to fill them by Tuesday of next week so that our boys can head out and hit the road and drive them down there on Wednesday. Because let's face it, they need these supplies yesterday. So the sooner we can fill these trucks, the sooner we can get it all down there.
Yeah, I know that the grocery stores in Asheville, North Carolina, and I've got some people in Asheville that I have to reach out to. I've been giving them space because obviously they're dealing with more important things. But grocery stores were empty there. They couldn't get any food. I was talking about a couple of people like Tim Kennedy and others who routinely go to these disaster areas, and they know how FEMA works. They know how these sorts of things work. And I was kind of curious about this because yesterday I went over how FEMA will often, they will see semi-trucks, they will turn supplies away. Sometimes Americans actually have to go around FEMA and hide and sneak to get supplies to victims because they're not preferred vendors. So like if they have a contract with Pepsi, you can't bring Coke and things like that.
Right.
So how is this effort that you're involved with going to address that, get around that? Do they have the means to ensure that their trucks won't be turned around or confiscated by FEMA? How is that working out?
Well, you're going to love this. So they've got some groups down there in North Carolina that they actually worked with back in 2016 during Hurricane Katrina. They've kind of been through this before. And so they've got some boots on the ground from a distilling company of all places and a couple local churches. Similar organizations that they got hooked up with back in 2016 after Katrina. So they are confident with these same organizations that they can get these supplies in. They did not want to tell me on the air how exactly
I understand that.
which is understandable
move.
as well. But Monday morning, I'm actually going out to Buchanan. I'm going to take my show out there live, as I mentioned, to help solicit some of these donations. And that'll be something that we'll try to explore a little bit more in depth as we'll have a little bit more time Monday morning. To get into that as much as they feel that they can share and tell, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I don't want them to share too much because we don't want anybody knowing what's going on.
They did tell me the name of the churches and the distillery off the air that they're hooking up with so that I could do my own research into that. But I also want to respect and not share those on the air either.
Well, especially with the federal government under Biden going after distilleries as it's been doing the past couple of years. So, yeah, I definitely, yes. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Maintain their privacy.
But truly, if your listeners want to get involved, if it's on their heart, whether, it's a case of water or 10 cases of water, clean clothes, diapers, baby formula, sunscreen, non-perishable food items. And also think about this, not the ones that you need a can opener to pop open,
Sure.
These folks don't even have can openers. Socks, underwear, toothbrushes, toothpaste, you name it. We've got the full list there at wowo.com as well. And again, I'll be sure to share on Twitter so you can share it also. But just think about it. If you have it, they need it.
And also, I hear that through a little birdie that you're going to be going on with a friend of ours, Mr. Todd Starnes, to talk about the stuff that's been happening in Logansport. You've been covering it. I've been addressing it a little bit. You had that great interview with the mayor recently. And I was just wanted to give you an opportunity to plug when you're going to be on with Todd Starnes about that.
Well, I was actually on last night with Todd.
Were you?
On the
man.
Yeah, I was on the Todd Starnes radio show, but it was great because we got some coverage on Newsmax. And this story, it all kind of comes full circle because when it comes to Logansport and this Haitian migrant influx that they are experiencing, which is very real from the lips of the mayor himself there in Logansport, they've seen about a 30% influx increase over the last 3 years, which equates to about 5,600 individuals, just to put it into perspective. But this all goes back to the Biden-Harris administration as well, and them expanding some different kind of migrant programs that they have for Haiti, for Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, what a lot of our FEMA money is actually being spent on, Casey, is not actual natural disaster relief, like a hurricane. It's being spent on a lot of these immigration resettlements. Just fiscal year 2024 alone, $1 billion has been spent on these immigration resettlements. So here we are. This Logansport story is kind of coming full circle as we start to see these stories like Springfield, Ohio, Logansport, Indiana, Indianapolis as well, so on and so forth. To me, it's all very cyclical. One kind of is a domino effect that's now greatly impacting the folks down there in North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, you name it, down south.
Yeah, and I was fact-checking it today because Todd Rokita was, he was posting about it, the Attorney General, and People, of course, were attacking him and saying Republicans voted against the funding. No, they didn't. The funding that they're talking about was additional supplemental funding beyond the $20 billion that they just gave to FEMA. That's in addition to the largest budget they've ever had and the largest disaster relief fund budget they've ever had. And 3 months ago, Mayorkas said, we are perfectly prepared for hurricane season, and it's been a 50-year low in hurricanes, and somehow they don't have any money left over, which is just is politics as it is at the expense of the American people. I'm glad that you're doing this. So Monday, your show is going to be out there in Buchanan. And again, people can follow you on your social media. You're going to post the link to the GoFundMe on X so I can repost that. That would be awesome. I'd appreciate that. And Kayla, thank you so much for your efforts, and thank you for joining us and everything you're doing.
Well, thanks for sharing the good word, Casey. Keep it up.
Sounds good. All right, take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Kayla Blakesley, host of Fort Wayne's Morning News, and I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. We'll be back with The Burning Truth. All right, now we got to address just a couple more things before Dinesh D'Souza joins us at 4:35. So Elon Musk, earlier today, just received this note from a SpaceX engineer helping on the ground in North Carolina. FEMA is not merely failing to adequately help people in trouble, but it is actively blocking citizens who try to help. Hey, Elon, update here on site of Asheville, North Carolina. We have powered up 2 large operating bases for choppers to deliver goods into hands. We've deployed 300 plus Starlinks and Outpour. Starlinks and Outpour has saved many lives. Okay, it's just, sorry, bad grammar there. The big issue is FEMA is actively blocking shipments and seizing goods and services locally and locking them away to state that they are their own. So FEMA's taking goods that you're sending, and then FEMA will distribute them and take the credit for it, is basically what he's saying. It's very real and scary how much they have taken control to stop people helping. We are blocked now on the shipments of new Starlinks coming in until we get an escort from the fire department, but they may not be enough. Now, that's Elon Musk posting about one of his engineers on the ground. We've told you about the helicopter pilot who was told to stop rescuing people. We've played you the soundbite from Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, saying they're closing the airspace. No drones, that sort of thing. They're now saying that isn't true. But did we or did we not play that on the show yesterday, Morgan? That was Pete Buttigieg. It wasn't a deep fake. That was him saying it. So today, just about an hour ago, Elon Musk, SpaceX engineers are trying to deliver Starlink terminals and supplies to devastated areas in North Carolina right now, and FEMA is both failing to help and won't let others help. This is unconscionable. They just took this video a few hours ago where they can see the level of devastation, roads, houses, electricity, water supply, and ground internet connections completely destroyed. FEMA wouldn't let them land to deliver critical supplies. My blood is boiling. Now, we've got, again, tons of people who are confirming that this is happening. We've got the pilot from the helicopter who went viral because he was prevented from rescuing people. The update yesterday is the guy that he had to leave behind. He rescued his wife, but the guy that he had to leave behind because he was facing arrest has been reunited with his wife. The FCC prevented Starlink from being in a position to help here. There's a lot of people in some areas that are getting Starlink as a backup system because Starlink will work in a disaster. So now, as Kayla was mentioning, FEMA and the Red Cross have gone out there to try and debunk, quote, misinformation. Well, listen, if you're on the ground and you have people who do this regularly for every disaster season, again, people like Tim Kennedy, this is not a guy who's known for making things up. People who have organized these efforts, they've all been saying the same thing about FEMA for a number of years. It's one of the reasons that they continue to do this, because FEMA continues to botch these things. So we're sitting here and we're looking at all of the stuff on the ground, empty grocery store shelves, people saying, I have absolutely nothing. There are YouTubers who are very famous, who live in this area, who are actively posting some of the stuff that's happening in their communities. And everything that they're saying is one thing, and then everything that FEMA is saying is completely different. And FEMA has provided no evidence at all that what they're claiming is happening is the truth. None. So now they're not allowing you to, fly in some places, which is not a rumor, which is not a lie. Pete Buttigieg said it. We played you the audio of him saying it yesterday. In some areas you can fly, but you're not allowed to land. Well, they have supplies. Americans are stepping up, and they're being completely ignored, turned around, prevented. You can see social media full of people who are using mules and horses that they have to get supplies to people and posting about it like, hey, ain't nobody coming to help us. Americans need to help each other here. Government's not going to help. And it's hearkening back to the old words of Ronald Reagan. Scariest words in the English language. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. So FEMA's out there trying to debunk rumors. How about you just focus on helping people? We've got FEMA employees that are getting deployed there on the ground, but have no marching orders at all, according to whistleblowers. But FEMA has these fact checks going? Really? Why? Why? What is the point of having a fact check happening right now? Unless it was political. Huh. You start looking at the amount of money that has been going towards things that it shouldn't be going towards. Certainly not with FEMA. Now, am I saying that a lot of those programs maybe aren't worthwhile? Not necessarily. Some of them I certainly think should not be funded at all. But if you have $1 billion or more going to a program that doesn't make a lot of sense, like, helping house illegal immigrants or migrants who have temporary status in the United States, that's $1 billion that could be helping people right now. Again, look at the optics, folks. This will impact the election. Look at the optics. You're in Georgia and you're North Carolina. North Carolina is likely going to go red, but it is a swing state. It can go the other way. Georgia's a swing state. You had nobody from the federal government go to those disaster zones for, almost a week. Joe Biden was on the beach, claims he was on the phone for 2 hours dealing with it. Kamala Harris is nowhere to be found. When she did make her way there, she didn't address any questions with the press. She didn't go to a disaster zone. She got shamed into having a FEMA briefing, which she kicked the press out, didn't take any questions. The moment it happened, Donald Trump was there with supplies. And he was helping local officials with disaster efforts because, again, he has some experience here. I think that's going to resonate. And then you factor in, folks, that you have the $750, which people have been pointing out, oh, wow, Ukrainians get billions of dollars, but people who are American citizens who are a victim of a hurricane are getting $750. And they're trying to fact check by going, oh, no, that's just the initial amount. That's just immediate. They're going to get more money later on. And then you find out that a ton of people who have no homes anymore are being denied the $750 check. Part of it's a home inspection. You can't do a home inspection when you're not there. Part of it's you can't access the area where the home would be. And the other part of it is they're not giving $750 checks to people unless they're already on federal assistance. Well, that's great. Got more coming up. Dinesh D'Souza talking about his new movie, Vindicating Trump, is up next, right here on The Burning Truth.
The Burning Truth with Casey Hendrickson.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to The Burning Truth. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. I kind of teased that I had somebody special for you guys coming up today, and joining us on the line right now, renowned filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, how are you doing this afternoon?
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for the time. We really do appreciate it. And, really got a new film out. And I wanted to have you on to really talk about it because I think that your movies are very different than what we typically see with political documentaries, in that usually a political documentary has a bunch of people coming out with counterpoints, counterfacts, picking it apart, saying it's wrong, being able to fact check that movie. You get a lot of people, Dinesh, that say that you're not telling the truth, but I never really see anybody give any evidence pointing to where you got things wrong. And that's become kind of a theme where you always challenge them for that, and they never actually produce any of that.
That's right. I think the reason the films are so powerful is because I use the same elements of what makes a feature film successful for the documentary films. So a good feature film, of course, will have character, it will have plot, it will have suspense, narrative, climax, an emotional underpinning with a musical score. So we put all those elements into the films so that the films are very engaging, entertaining, and in the end informative and inspirational as well. And this film is no exception. It tells the story of Trump and also of the people who are trying to undermine Trump to get him. I talk about character assassination, political assassination, lawfare or legal assassination, and then, of course, the two actual assassination attempts.
Now, of course, we're talking about Dinesh D'Souza's brand new film, Vindicating Trump, which, of course, you can get tickets to and learn more about at vindicatingtrump.com. So, Dinesh, what made you sit down and say this was the next movie? Obviously, you make political documentaries on the regular, but why this film and why now?
Trump is an extremely interesting figure, one larger-than-life figure. I've never seen a figure in political life where you've got one group of people who will take a bullet for him, and another group of people who will actually cheer, maybe silently cheer, when somebody else tries to put a bullet in him. You have to go back to Abraham Lincoln to find a figure who inspired or provoked such radically opposite reactions. And even with Lincoln, the division was not over Lincoln the man, it was over slavery. It was over the issues. But with Trump, it is over the man. So you've got this remarkable figure. The centerpiece of this film, by the way, is a very interesting and eye-popping one-on-one conversation with Trump in which I spring questions on him very different than the ones he normally gets. And it gives you a real window into into his soul, into the tumblers of his mind working, and some aspects of Trump that he normally does not like to exhibit in public.
Yeah, a lot of his private life has been just that, very private. I'm originally from Las Vegas. Of course, he was there quite a bit. And, we saw Trump, the guy, the same guy that you see now, but still his family life. He's always protected his children, especially when they were young. We've seen that. And he's always made sure that his private life was protected. And it's a little bit more difficult to do nowadays with his political life. But so do you have any teasers on some of the questions that you asked him that might be a little bit different than what we typically see with a political interview?
So here's a type of a typical question I ask him. I say, look, they say that you called for an insurrection on January 6th. And as far as I can see, you didn't do that. You didn't tell people to go inside the Capitol. You didn't tell them to take over the place. You didn't tell them to stop the count. However, I say, guess what? Had you called for an insurrection, there would have been one, and I mean a real one. Mm-hmm. And there would be one if you called for one now. So what is it like to have that kind of singular power? The point I was getting at, by the way, with Trump is nobody else could actually call for an insurrection and pull it off. If any other political figure, including Kamala Harris, Biden, anyone in the Republican side said, hey, let's show up for an insurrection at 6 p.m., nobody would come. So Trump, in that sense, has that kind of magnitude. He has that kind of power. And it's interesting to see how he reacts to that type of a question. So that's just a small example. I think another point I'd like to make is that Trump shows certain qualities in public, and sometimes qualities that people object to. Oh, he's very egotistical, or he's a bully. Well, Trump is an 800-pound gorilla, and he will bully other bullies. But you'll never see Trump bully a doorman in one of his hotels. He'll never bully a waiter. Recently when Tim Walz was out in public, some Trumpster shouted something at him, and Walz gave him the middle finger.
He flipped him off.
Trump will never do that. Yeah. So Trump, in his personal dimension, is not egotistical. He's self-deprecating. He's very gentle. He shows a lot of curiosity about other people. If he sees his own employees, he knows that this guy's kid just finished his exam. He asks about that guy. So these are not the qualities of an egotist or a narcissist.
Yeah, that's one of the things that people who've worked for Donald Trump, whether they supported him politically or not, have always said about him. Is they always made time to communicate with his employees and ask them about their families as well. So again, the movie is Vindicating Trump. You can get tickets at vindicatingtrump.com. It is in theaters, so you can actually go to a movie theater and watch this. You can also buy the DVD and the Blu-ray and everything else at vindicatingtrump.com. So what are some of the issues that you tackled with some of the other stuff in Vindicating Trump? Some of the things maybe about electioneering, and I'd like that you went back in time and were playing these old clips of Donald Trump, because I did this a lot back in 2016. A lot of people who didn't know who he was, they didn't know that he was basically saying the same things in 2016 that he'd been saying for 10, 15 years. So I like how you did that. But what were some of the other things that you addressed in the film?
Well, the film has a very interesting interview with Laura Trump, and I picked her because, she is in the Trump family, so she sees Trump up close, but she's also an in-law, so she has, you could call it in-law objectivity. The other thing is she's also the vice chair of the Republican National Committee. One of the interesting segments of the film deals with election fraud, and deals with a form of election fraud that most people have never heard about. The section is called the ballot makers, and believe it or not, we expose in the film that there's a deep vulnerability in our system, namely that you or I can purchase and make thousands of ballots. Now, this seems crazy because we always think I get ballots from the state. I live in Texas. I'm going to get the state of Texas to send me an absentee ballot. But where does the state of Texas get ballots from? The answer is they order ballot stock from a handful of printing companies, and you and I can go buy ballot stock from those companies and make thousands, maybe tens of thousands of ballots. So all of this is exposed in the movie. I raise it with Trump. I raise it with Laura Trump. So as with my other movies, this movie is packed with new insights, but also with new information on the very important and urgent issue of election fraud.
Now, I suppose that there would be some people who watch your movie Vindicating Trump, Dinesh, and they would go, okay, we're still doing this thing again. I've heard this from Republicans. Stop talking about the election being stolen. Stop talking about all of that stuff. Why continue to push that issue heading into 2024 when so many people, including some of his supporters, feel like that might be an anchor around his neck and may not actually help him? Why continue to pursue that?
Well, I think it is very important to say that this is not the stuff that I covered in 2,000 Mules. In 2,000 Mules in 2022, I was looking back at what happened in 2020. And even in that movie, I was very clear to say, listen, the only reason I'm looking in the rearview mirror is so this stuff doesn't happen again. Now, in the new movie, I'm doing something totally different. I'm basically saying, all right, let me put myself in the mind of the criminals. If I were to break into Fort Knox, how would I do it? Is there a vulnerability in our election system that hasn't been discovered, hasn't been exposed? So who can possibly say that that's not a good thing to do? It's kind of like saying if you suspect that banks are being robbed, and I tell you, all right, I'm now telling you that I've discovered that at all the banks in the country, they leave the back door open on Saturday from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. You're like, why are you talking about election? Why are you talking about robbing banks? This is obviously, the integrity of our election system is obviously vitally important. I'm not saying that anyone has done this type of a fraud. I'm actually trying to blow the whistle in advance to make it impossible for any kind of a heist to occur in 2024. So unless you think that the issue itself is not important or insignificant, there's nothing wrong with looking ahead and putting out some warning signs. Again, it's not about looking back at 2020. It's about looking forward to the upcoming election.
Yeah, I think most people would be very surprised that you can actually print your own ballots, especially since we have ballots going out in some states that don't have the markers that are supposed to have and things like that, even in this election right now. And having that information out there, considering even Democrats for many years, Dinesh, have talked about being able to hack into voting machines and change the vote. And they were very worried about Michigan heading into 2016 and the letter from the Democrats over there. So this is something that should be bipartisan, but of course it hasn't been, simply because of who won that election in 2016. What were some of the other big surprising finds as you started diving into this in your movie Vindicating Trump?
I think because the controversy over Trump is over the man, the movie highlights, people I've heard endlessly now for years about sort of Trump's vices. He's a playboy, he's an egotist, he's a bully, he's this and he's that. Very rarely do people talk about Trump's virtues, and I want to highlight the virtues of courage, because the philosopher Aristotle says that is the highest of all the virtues, in part because it gives you kind of the strength to carry out the other virtues. And look at Trump's reaction to the two assassination attempts. I mean, let's focus for a moment on the second one, because, first of all, Trump is annoyed that he's being pulled off the golf course when he's about to make an amazing shot. I mean, that's crazy. I don't know anybody else who would react that way. He goes on social media and he posts 0 for 2. We all know about his reaction to the first assassination attempt. And it's beyond that. If you even look at the criminal charges, any other Republican facing 3 criminal charges would have exited the race, fled the field, be never heard from again.
Yeah.
But the way that Trump not only endures but forges ahead, I think gives him a sort of sublime bravery that puts him in a class of his own. I don't know, again, anyone else, not just today, but even in the landscape of American history, who has this kind of fortitude and tenacity.
Yeah, I think he surprised all of us. I think we go back to that debate, and when Megyn Kelly had her exchange with him, I think a lot of us, myself included, were like, oh gosh, I've never seen anybody come back from that. I think he's done. And some people said, nope, he's not. And sure enough, I mean, he hasn't gone anywhere. And we've never seen anything like that. Do you think that's why? Just that he won't go away, he won't give in, he won't surrender. Do you think that the history and the tradition of the American spirit of just liking the underdog, liking somebody who's a fighter and a winner, is really what pulls people to Donald Trump?
I think yes, and I would add, and this is something I would say both of Trump and J.D. Vance, and Vance showed it in the recent vice presidential debate, they are very authentic. I mean, Trump is so authentic that if you look at a Trump tweet, you look at a social media post by Trump, you can tell it's him. If somebody else did it, the Trumpsters would detect it immediately. Trump has a unique voice, he has a unique style, he loves to use bold and all caps and multiple exclamation points, so you can tell that that's Trump's own distinctive voice. And J.D. Vance, too, is an American original of that sort. And I think by contrast, both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are trying their best to appear likable and folksy and relatable, but it's all a performance. And I think the American people are smart enough to tell the difference between a performance, a theatrical show, and the real thing.
You mean like Mr. Jazz Hands, Mr. Walz? The jazz hand thing?
Exactly. I mean, he I don't know if you saw that little social media clip. He sees a mascot on the field.
Yeah.
His reaction is so over the top. Victory signs, hugs the guy, hugs himself. It's just so ridiculous and unbecoming of a 60-year-old to respond in that way that you're like, that's fake.
Yeah, clearly it is. Again, we're talking with Dinesh D'Souza, renowned filmmaker, and his new movie, Vindicating Trump, which you can go to vindicatingtrump.com. You can get tickets for it. You can also buy the movie and also find a movie theater showing it near you. Every time you have an endeavor, I would assume, especially when you're doing a documentary, Dinesh, and you're starting to uncover things in the story, there's usually something that catches you off guard, is a big surprise you weren't expecting. Can you tell us what one of those big moments was for you when you were making Vindicating Trump?
The biggest surprise for me was this. As I got ready to talk to Trump, it was a one-on-one for 45 minutes. My wife told me something that anyone could have said to me, which is, Dinesh, you'll be lucky if you get in 3 questions. Trump is like a runaway train. He's going to be off and running, and so, you're not going to be able to, quote, interview him in any meaningful sense of the term. And I go, no. I need to kind of control the trajectory of the interview. I'm going to ask Trump about young Lincoln and his Lyceum speech and the threat of dictatorship that Lincoln prophesied. I want people to see Trump process this information and respond to it. And it's not stuff that he gets normally in typical interviews that he does. I'm happy to say that Trump let me do that. You can see him sitting back, listening, digesting information, making sense of it, and responding. So it's a very unique type of conversation, and it's the centerpiece of the film. There's a lot else in the film. There are entertaining and very cinematic I make these movies for the theater. So, you'll be able to watch it later if you want by streaming or DVD, but watching it in the theater with like-minded people is a whole different experience. So it's going to be in the theaters another week or so. See it if you can this weekend, or if not, the coming week. And vindicatingtrump.com is where you get tickets.
All right. Any last-minute nuggets for anybody out there who might be considering going to watch the movie Vindicating Trump?
let's just say that this is, some people have called my films docudramas because they're not normal documentaries. It's not interviews with a little bit of stock footage. This is a full-scale movie, and it's quite common in my films at the end of the film for the entire theater to stand up and burst into applause. And you know that that's rare in a movie theater, but it happens all the time. So enjoy it, share it. If you have a Democrat, buy them a ticket and yank them along. You'll be glad you did.
Yeah, and I personally experienced that. I was just telling Dinesh before the interview that way back when his film about Obama came out, I took a bunch of listeners to that, and it was a standing ovation at the end of the movie. Fantastic stuff. You've always put out very, very good films. It's always easy to recommend them to people. I wish you the best of success with Vindicating Trump, Dinesh, and of course, go to vindicatingtrump.com. You can buy the movie there, get tickets there, find a movie theater near you that is playing it. Definitely go see it at the movie theater and then pick up a copy for yourself. You do have the holidays coming up, too, so this would make a great stocking stuffer for your leftist cousin when you go visit over the holidays.
Absolutely. And if I can say, there's also a book of the same title, and that's coming out in a few days, and you can get that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or right off the movie website.
Perfect. Go to vindicatingtrump.com. Dinesh D'Souza, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. And again, I want to thank Dinesh for joining the program today. We went long, obviously, so we'll have a quick turnaround when we get back on the other side of the commercial break, but more coming up on The Burning Truth. I mean, we're turning right around to go to commercial break because of the long interview with Dinesh D'Souza. We got more coming up on The Burning Truth.
Podcasts by Federated Media.